Hey, Carrie.
Hi, Matt.
How's it going?
I'm good. You?
Good. So what are you up to?
I'm recording a podcast promo. You asked me to be here. I don't think this is the most engaging start.
I could see that, but I was kind of hoping we could play it cool. Hey guys, we've got this new podcast. It's called Stereochemistry. It's going to be really cool. You should check it out.
Oh, yeah, that's not how I do that.
Okay. So how would you do it?
Welcome to CNEN's brand new podcast, Stereochemistry. This is the show where you'll hear chemistry news from the people who are making it. I'm your host, Carrie Jansen. And then you'd say, and I'm Matt Davenport.
And I'm Matt Davenport.
We'll be covering some of the biggest stories in chemistry. Subscribe to Stereochemistry on iTunes now and watch for us on Google Play, TuneIn, and SoundCloud. We're going to debut the first full show at the end of February. But right now, we just wanted to give you a little taste of the type of reporting you can expect. Here's CNN Senior Business Editor Melody Baumgardner with a story on sustainable farming and fish poop.
Raising any animal, a 30-year time is feeding them, a 30-year time is moving them around, and a 30-year time is cleaning up poop.
That's Leo Ray, founder of Fish Breeders of Idaho. CNN visited his aquaculture center in Idaho's Magic Valley to learn what it takes to raise and farm fish sustainably in America. You might think that the U.S. is up to its gills in sustainable domestic seafood with all of its access to fresh and salt water, but up to 90% of the country's seafood is imported, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And the oceans, those things covering more than 70% of the planet, can barely keep up with the burden of humanity's fishing. In the face of this complex problem, it's reassuring to hear how Ray sustains his operation in Idaho in simple terms, supported by simple, natural chemistry. That's not to say humans don't play a role, though.
It's kind of that tender love and care. The human element has to do a very good job of keeping a good, healthy, clean environment for the fish.
The farmer has 3 primary responsibilities when it comes to fish, Ray tells us. Start the fish out in good, oxygen-rich water, feed them good food, and keep the water clean as the fish grow and reproduce. The Magic Valley all but takes care of item 1. Irrigation, along with the Snake River, aquifers, and natural springs, has helped transform this once arid region into great farmland and farm water.
We're really a desert region. Our rainfall is less than 9 inches a year. And at the same time, in 30-mile stretch here, we raise about 40 million pounds of fish a year.
Water is remarkable in any desert, but it's downright mystical in the Magic Valley, and folks have known that for a while.
It's a constant 58 degrees the year around, saturated in oxygen, and perfect for raising rainbow trout. Trout was actually raised before Idaho became a state. The settlers would trap the trout with rock dams in these springs and then catch the fish out, take them up, and sell them to the miners. They would cut up their dead horses to feed the trout and take them to Sun Valley and sell them into the mining community up there.
Which brings us to nutrition. Unlike the settlers, Ray doesn't use protein from land animals to feed his fish. One of the reasons is his clientele.
My largest customer is Whole Foods, and nobody is pickier in what they get than Whole Foods.
To Whole Foods, being picky means not only rejecting antibiotics, pesticides, and artificial flavors and colors, but also meat-fed fish. Many of Whole Foods customers won't eat meat, but will eat fish, as long as the fish didn't eat meat, Ray says. But there's another compelling reason he steers clear of meat-based diets.
The best food for a fish is another fish.
Historically, oceans have provided the fish for fish meal, but that model's become problematic.
About 10 years ago, we maxed out the oceans for fish meal. There's not going to be an increase in fish meal production. If we take any more of it out, then we start starving other fish that depend on it, in the oceans.
Ray sells a lot of fish fillets to customers. What's left over after filleting becomes fish meal. That doesn't provide enough fish meal to cover his livestock's nutritional requirements, but it goes a long way. And the rest can be supplemented with plant proteins. This may sound like an obvious solution, but it's the product of innovative university research. His current approach wouldn't have been possible 20 years ago, he says. Although it may sound surprising that a fish farmer in Idaho is working with research universities, Ray's a forward-thinking guy. That becomes abundantly apparent in how he talks about the third element of fish rearing, maintaining water quality and keeping pollution down.
Phosphorus is a good key indicator of pollution levels. Now, EPA and the industries came up with a phosphorus limit, and the fish industry had to reduce the amount of phosphorus they were producing by 40%. Research from the University of Idaho basically allowed us to do that.
So it sounds like that eutrophication issue is one of the main constraints then here on the trout production. Do you anticipate any new technology that could come around that might help that, like microbial digestion or any of that type of thing? Or is
our universities have done a magnificent job of research in this field. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we reduced our phosphorus discharge by 40%. And we did most of that.
Because you're not changing the physiology of the fish. That's not within you.
What we did mainly was take the phosphorus out of the feed. Now, once that gets in the water column, it is very difficult to remove because it is in such low quantities. In time, we will see more research that develops new techniques and technologies that will work. One of the ones that I think has a lot of potential is growing things below the fish on the same water that have an economic value that we can sell that remove phosphorus. And a good example, one that I think would work, would be several types of mussels. A lot of phosphorus goes into that clamshell.
It's kind of weird to think of mussels as state-of-the-art, but we're not going to bet against a guy who's helped satisfy health food nuts and government bureaucrats by farming fish in the desert. For CNN, this is Melody Baumgartner.
So that's how I'd handle a podcast promo.
Yeah, that was pretty good. So stay tuned for a few more sneak peeks, or I guess sneak listens, of the podcast before we launch our first full episode at the end of February. But you can subscribe to Stereochemistry on iTunes right now.
Thanks for listening.